So avoiding some of the common pitfalls of sewing machine issues, it's important to make sure some of the basics are done correctly and that you have an understanding of how the sewing machine works. So when the machine is threaded, it might thread from here, it might thread on the top, the thread might go from here, but either way, the thread comes from the spool and it comes across the top of the sewing machine, and then it goes down, it goes through the tensioner, and there's a little check spring there. Then it goes up and goes through the take-up lever, and then it comes back down through the guide and into the eye of the needle and goes through the needle. Now the way the sewing machine works is, as the machine begins to turn, the needle goes down, and as the needle goes down, this take-up lever also heads down with the needle. And as the needle gets to the bottom and begins to rise, the hook underneath inside the machine where the bobbin is picks up, goes behind the thread, behind the needle, picks up the bobbin thread, and you'll see the thread go in front of the bobbin. If you can see that, you can see that the thread is going in front of the bobbin. So the hook has grabbed it, and now there's a couple inches of thread that is actually looped around the bottom and coming back. And you'll notice that this take-up lever is down. So the needle is actually at its highest point right now, and this take-up lever, as it heads up, is going to pull the thread back up. So let's just look at this. Remember that we have the needle going up and down and the take-up lever going up and down. So the needle goes up, it goes down and back up again. And then the take-up lever, it goes down and back up again. Those are they're very critical. So I'm gonna narrate what's going on here. The needle's going down, it gets to the bottom, and as it starts to head up, it creates a loop. The hook, which you can't see, is underneath the machine. It hooks the thread, brings it around the bobbin case, and now the take-up lever is going up and it pulls the thread back up. So I don't know if you can see that, but needle goes down, thread is hooked, thread goes around the bobbin case just like that, and then the take-up lever pulls that loop back up through the needle. So you can actually see the thread go down, and then look at the eye of the needle. The take-up lever pulls the thread back up, just like that. So that's the action of the take-up lever. It allows thread to go down and form the loop, and then it pulls the thread back up again in order to complete the stitch. So if your sewing machine, if you're sewing and you take 1 or 2 or 3 stitches and it all jams up in the bottom, that's usually the case of this take-up lever not being threaded. Because if the thread goes from here through the tensioner and doesn't go up there, if it just goes straight across and down, then what's going to happen is the needle's going to go down, that's going to form a loop, and there's going to be nothing to pull the thread back up, so that big loop of thread is going to remain down there. Then the next stitch that you take, the needle goes down and it jams up with the first one, and so after the second or third one, you're going to have a giant rat's nest down there, and it's going to be hard to get out. 9 times out of 10, it's just because this take-up lever was not threaded. Also, different sewing machines have different tensioners. This particular one has a tensioner that has tension discs that are externally, and you can see them. So when you raise the presser foot up, it actually releases these discs. Right now they're really tight. When I raise the presser foot up, it loosens the whole thing. When I lower the presser foot down, it snaps them, and they're really tight, very tight. So When you thread your sewing machine, the most important thing to do is, first of all, if you're threading it from here or the top or this way, it doesn't matter. Make sure that the thread, when you take it down, I always hold it with my finger so it's tight. Make sure that it goes in between. First of all, make sure your presser foot is up, that it's lifted up and it releases the discs. Make sure that the thread goes between the discs, between the check spring, and then this goes up like that. Some machines have internal tensions and you can't really see them. And one way to check it is, once you've gotten this far, you can pull the thread and it should pull very easily, no effort. But when you lower the presser foot down, now it's hard to turn. It's hard to pull. You feel tension on it. And when you lift up, it should release. Then the next thing you need to do after you've threaded that part is thread the take-up lever. Some you have to go through the eye of the needle, and some of them, like this one, you just hook it over. But make sure that it hooks in there and doesn't come out. It's easy to get it behind there and it's not actually in the lever. Then you can thread it through the guide below. There's usually a guide above the needle, and then cut your thread and put it in the needle. Also make sure that the needle itself, there's a flat part of the needle, and that usually goes to the back. If the bobbin is in the front, the flat part's to the back. If the bobbin loads from the side, the flat part is to the side. If it's a bobbin that loads on the top, then the needle is with the flat side to the back. So with the exception of the Singer Featherweight, which is opposite, the flat side is on this side. But with this kind of a machine, the flat side of the needle is to the back. So make sure that your needle is pressed all the way up, that it's threaded from front to back, and that your tension is actually on a number that is good enough tension. Like on this machine here, there's a 0 tension. And then we go to 3, to 4, to 5, to 6. It should be somewhere between 3 and 5, 3 to 6, maybe anywhere around halfway on a Kenmore. Most sewing machines, the tension's usually 4 to 5. But with Kenmores, they're usually 3 to 5. Anyway, I hope that helps.